What's up, Nerdy Bunch audience? It's your host, Tim, Nerdie Sports. Me and Scotty just finished a podcast talking about the first quarter of the NFL season, giving our quarterly report, thoughts on all 32 NFL teams, and at the end, we have Scotty's best bets of Week 5. Come join us. What's up, Nerdy Bunch, Nerdie Sports audience? We are back. It's football time. Even though I'm wearing a Yankees jersey today, it is football time. I've been super locked in to Yankees Red Sox. Oh my God, this series has been incredible. It's going exactly how I predicted. Boston wins game 1, Yankees win game 2, and I think Yankees win game 3. I'm mainly looking forward to Philly versus LA next round. But we'll save baseball for another day. I'll probably do a solo podcast for that. But we're talking football today. So we're a quarter way through the season today, Nerdy Bunch audience. We're talking about basically the first quarter. If you think about it from a business perspective, a quarterly report from a fantasy perspective to just how we feel about the teams. Originally, we had 7 teams we thought would potentially win the Super Bowl. I feel we're pretty much in that same ballpark right now. And there's also probably another 7 teams that are completely write-offs, don't even have a potential possibility of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
But before I ask any questions, I want to lay out 3 monster stats.
Okay.
So just statistically, from a fantasy football perspective, there are 3 outliers compared to everything else. We have Dak Prescott, his completions. He has 23 more completions than any other quarterback in football. He is 121. Okay. Second place is 98 for Spencer Rattler, of course, Mr. 0-10. Then it's receptions. We have Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nacua. Christian McCaffrey leads all running backs with 31 receptions, 11 more than anybody else. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 2. Boom, 20 right there. 2 first-round picks. And they're actually doing pretty well. Then Puka Nacua, a guy I wish I drafted instead of Jamar Chase. Gosh. I think everybody, actually, I want to talk about him a little bit. So the big stat is 42 completions he has. Second place is 27. 15 more completions than anybody else. And it's only 4 games in. And his worst game, quote unquote, was against the Titans, the only bad defense he played. And he had a 45-yard rushing touchdown that game. So he only got 91 receiving yards there. 9 catches. He has 10 plus in every other game. He had 170 yards last game. He's played Houston Texans, Denver Broncos, Philadelphia Eagles. He's played some big matchups. How do you feel like Puka Nacua compared to Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb? If we were all of a sudden having to redraft now, he's clear number 1. Do you think he goes number 1 next year in fantasy?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I do think, and fantasy, because it's more stats, I think there's a chance he goes number 1. And if it was NFL, if you were asking me who's drafted, it's definitely not, because I think there's a little bit of that stigma. I think he was a 5th round pick, I want to say, in real life draft. And there tends to be that little stigma. This is like the Brock Purdy question people talk about, where it takes you a really long time to get rid of it. And I think a lot of people are just going to look at something like Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow's hair is healthy, and say, oh, I want that because it just seems sexy. And he is a dependent position. Stafford's getting older. So if Stafford shows any decline, I'm not saying he has yet, but let's say in the end of the year, if you feel a little decline and just a natural knowing 1 more year, any day can be the kind of day you kind of drop a little bit. I feel like he's not going to lock in number 1, because I'm trying to remember, was the year after Cooper Kupp set the Triple Crown, was he number 1 that next year? I'm not sure that he was.
No.
Yeah. So I
Perfect
feel like
example, because Cooper Kupp dominated with Stafford.
Same team.
Yeah.
And I feel like people are going to, obviously he'll go very high, top 5 for sure, maybe top 3, but I don't think number 1. Yeah. I think people are just, almost a subconscious thing, are going to look for that bigger name. And right now, his name is just it's not big enough. Maybe it's because he's quiet, not tweeting all the time. That your guy AJ Brown, Jamar Chase sent out a tweet. Maybe it's because we used to receivers are flashy. They have tension. You can go down to the playmaker. You can go on to Dion. I know he was back and he played the lower receiver, but you can go on anybody. You need a little bit of flash, a receiver, if you want to get number 1 anything, fantasy or real life.
Yeah, but it's only his 3rd year.
He's my dream. As a coach, I want you to be quiet. I want is this real football? Perfect. That's perfect. But for fantasy, I think top three is his ceiling. I don't think he can do number 1.
That offense is scary. I think, like, crazy enough, we brought up Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nacua. Both of them are playing tonight. The rest of the
Looking
San
really good
Francisco
game.
49ers is injured,
Yeah,
including George Kittle, one of your guys. I know you have like four guys
yeah.
injured on your team. Of course, Trey Benson, another fancy guy who, $80 spent on a guy who's hurt right
That
now.
worked out well. It's like $10 per point, like $80 for 10 points so far. So that's not bad.
Yeah.
But let's not dwell on my horrors here.
Yeah, but Puka's been incredible. But you're
Yes.
right. He was a fifth round draft pick. I think Jamar Chase is still going to get a lot of love, even though people, are going to
Mm,
worry about Joe Burrow's injury. I think we can start there. In terms of like teams overall, we're talking Rams. I still think they're one of the Super Bowl favorites. They got to be
yeah,
one of
I like
them.
him.
They're
Definitely.
one of the teams that scare me the most. That's like the best offense in football. I think the Eagles have the best cornerbacks in football, but when you talk about the best wide receiver duo, Devontae Adams and, Puka Nacua, like that's scary. And Kyron Williams will plow through you. And obviously, Sean McVay could scheme up any great offense. I'm definitely still very scared of the Rams. And, according to Sharp Football
No
Focus, we
weakness.
got Eagles, Lions, Rams, Bucks all in the top five, all in the NFC. And these are teams
Yeah.
we've been consistently talking about, and I think they're finally atop of the power rankings. This is what we thought were the top three teams coming into, the season, the top four teams, sorry. And to correct myself, sorry, Puka Nacua, they faced the Colts last week. Still a great defense. They did not face the
Yeah.
Broncos, but still great defenses. I give the Rams an A. I think they're doing incredible. I think they're one of
Definitely.
the best
Definitely.
teams in the league. I have no doubts about them. And in terms of the San Francisco 49ers, I think mediocre. You look, they won the games they should win. I guess like a C plus, B minus. How do you feel about those two teams?
The Rams is strong A. They've looked really good. They could have, and some people would argue should have beat the Eagles because it depends on your perspective of special teams, honestly. You take out special teams, they did beat the Eagles basically, like on paper. You look at the other stats, but special teams is a part of the NFL. So even though like fantasy football, we don't think of it that much. Some people don't even play with kickers. We voted on that. But when it comes to special teams, Philly is like their special teams is so much better than the rest of the NFL. It's a complete different tier that I feel like you have to give them credit where other people, you feel like a block kick might be a fluke because they already have multiple in the season. Most teams might get one an entire season. So if it was a different team, I would give the Rams even. I would say, hey, you know what? It shouldn't count. It's almost like the Rams should have won that game. It was an unfair thing. It was a fluke. It's not going to happen again. The way Philly blocks kicks, I'm like, that's just part of them. If that makes sense. And so, but still, A for the Rams. They almost won the game. Still, block kick or not, they play great. And even though they haven't beat Philly recently, every game is close. So you feel like any game could be the game that they could beat. Like they definitely could beat them if they played in the playoffs. Even though they lost, I think four straight to them, I would still be frightened of them if I was the Eagles. So A for them. The Niners, yeah, I think around a C is good. Even though they're 3-1, and it depends on your perspective. Are they? You could say they're doing so good with all the injuries, but at the same time, I'd say if my goal is to win a Super Bowl, my team is beat up to hell. I'm getting injuries left and right. Then I don't feel like I'm on a good path right now. I have maybe a quarterback controversy coming in there. Some people might say Brock Purdy plays. If Mac Jones plays great again, he already has a great game. Brock Purdy's last game is not great. He has 5 interceptions in 2 games. That's not great. So I'm a little worried if I'm the Niners. And you mentioned McCaffrey because of the catches. He is leading the league in touches. If you add catches and
Usage,
running
yeah,
together,
exactly.
and
His
like by
stats are
he's like
incredible.
way. I
Yeah.
should have bought them up, but he's way ahead of second place. And for a guy that's had some injury history, man,
Hmm.
you're riding that horse really hard. That's already like panting. It was my reference here, so that's definitely a worry for me. And the Niners, they got Shannon, they'll always be good. I do tier this on a curve. So I'm not going to compare them to bad teams. They're always going to be good. They're going to win at minimum 9 games, 10 games. They'll probably make the playoffs. But I think for Super Bowl hopes, I feel like the amount of injuries again, it's like Groundhog's Day. Oh my God, we're the most injured team again in the NFL. How does this keep happening
Yeah.
to us?
He has 11 more catches than anybody, but he also has 18 more targets than anybody. And he still has 69 carries. So he's
Yeah.
only averaging 3 yards a carry. He's not dominating. Guys like Devon H and Bijan Robinson get 5 yards a carry. I'll save the Eagles for later, but Saquon's not exactly dominating that category because the offensive line's not giving them enough, room. to run. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's an interesting division. We have three 3-1 teams, but the San Francisco 49ers are only a +5 point differential. They're barely winning these games. And this is a team that Vegas was expecting to win like 11 games. So for them to be 3-1 at this rate, it's not really that impressive in my eyes. One team in that
No,
same division, the NFC West, that I'm loving, that I wasn't really expecting to, is the Seattle Seahawks. One of the best defenses in the league. Darnold's
right.
doing exactly what he did in Minnesota. You know, Jackson Smith and Jigba is all of a sudden one of the fantasy stars of the year. How do you feel about the Seahawks?
Well, I'll tell you a stat you just mentioned. I tried to look it up here. You mentioned about the Niners +5. Seattle is +44, which is second best in the entire NFL. And Vegas loves looking at point differential margins when they're putting in bets. I just looked up now. I was like, wait, that can't be right. Am I reading that wrong?
Yeah,
Plus
that's right,
44.
baby. Yeah.
Philly, for reference, we talked about them. They're +20. Like, that's way
hmm
out there. And I know it's not everything because blowouts, but that's really impressive. And they could have in the first game. That came down to the wire. I am super impressed. I don't know if I want to go to shocked, but pretty just below shocked, whatever that word would be. Very surprised at how well they're playing. It's only 4 games in, but yeah, I mean, they look like they got it all. It seems like they got this great defense. Sam Darnold is playing a what I call high level game manager. I don't know if I'd say carrying, but the highest level game manager basically because he's not messing up. When you have that defense, you can do that. They got a good run game. Like they really just don't really have many weaknesses. I think their biggest weakness is they don't have stars in name. Like most of their players, the closest is like JXN as far as a player that people really know about, and they're in the Pacific Northwest in the corner of maps, the farthest team from any other team by distance. So I feel like they don't have a lot of media coverage, but I mean they don't feel like they have any weaknesses. I think you have to put them in the Super Bowl bubble. If we talk about the starting season Super Bowl bubble, they're probably the team that makes the biggest jump in, and we could talk about some teams that maybe jumped out. But I think they have to have to jump into that, call it top 8, top 7.
I'll give them an A- because they did lose their first game against the San
Hmm.
Francisco 49ers, and their three wins are against pretty bad defenses, bad teams. Steelers, Saints, Cardinals. They got the
True, true.
Buccaneers this week, Jaguars, Texans, three great defenses. I know you hate Houston, but they got a good defense at least.
They do, they do.
So they got some tough competition coming up, but I'm really intrigued. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do. This is a team that historically it's one of the best, stadiums to play in. But this
Hmm.
is actually a
More
team
fans.
recent history. They're one of the best road teams. They're actually really bad at home. So, they're all at home facing the Buccaneers this week, and I'm pretty intrigued what's going on. I think a team with the Cardinals, that's the only other team in the NFC West. I don't
Hmm.
I don't love it. I Kyler Murray is a complete write-off for me. He's a guy I didn't even draft the quarterback in fantasy. I just picked up a guy late. I have Dak now, thankfully. But I picked up Kyler Murray instantly. I'm like, all right, let's see what he does. But he throws just so many interceptions. He's so inconsistent. He could scramble so much more. He's so much more talent. He's so small. They're 2-2, +8 point differential. They faced the Saints, the Panthers, the 49ers, and Seahawks. They beat the teams they should beat. They lost the teams we would project them to beat. So I guess I give them like a C-, but I'm just not excited. Their running back right now is a guy I don't even know of, Williams or something like that. Their big guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., is not playing well. That's the big pick.
That's
You know,
probably the biggest story for the Cardinals is what's
yeah.
up
What?
with Ron Jones Jr.
Let's finish out the division. What do you think of them?
Cardinals, I think they're the definition of a C, and I guess that's a higher grade than you gave. But what I mean by this definition of C is they're that middle. They're 2-2. That's what a C is when I think of grades. Is the equivalent of 2-2, like just a pass. They're just very mid, as the kids would say. You know, I feel like they need a tear down. They gotta get a new quarterback, and not Kyler Murray bad, but like I think this is their Groundhog Day. Every year they open up, you'll make better than the record. We're like 5-3 ish, and then they finish 3-5, and they end like 8-8. It's always around that area. You Marvin Harris Jr. right now. That's my biggest question. If I'm them, I'm not even worried about Kyler Murray because I'm probably already in the back of my mind thinking we're probably going to have to move on. He's the second longest tenured starting quarterback in the NFL, believe it or not. But he's like, so I'm already like, okay, we've tried this for years. It's not working. We thought that this receiver
Multiple coaches.
would be the guy that bought him
Yeah.
to the next level. That he would be like the Justin Jefferson, the type of guy where you put him with any quarterback and he jumps. That's not happening. And The running back situation's a mess. You've been working with James Conner, who's average at best before his injury. Now he's injured and really bad injury, like the type of one that affects your career. Like it's just, it's. I think you got. I would, if I'm them actually, it's secretly as a fan, I would want a tank. I want like a top five pick. I want the team to win like 4 games and tank it. So I'm like, we're not going anywhere. So let's just tear it down. Maybe we trade Colin Murray, honestly, to a team that could use him. Like I try to, I don't know, I'm just, it's never going to work. But something like Cincinnati, trade him to a team that lost their quarterback and say, okay, can I get something, rebuild, lose as many games as possible, and start this from scratch? That's what I feel like for them.
Yeah. All right, let's move up to the next division. So we got your team, your favorite,
Yes,
the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, three and
they're
one,
my favorite.
0 point differential. They got all these tight games. They win everything at the last second. They barely lost to the Eagles this week when, you know, the Eagles were up big, and still Baker was able to
Good game.
get them back. And they were completely depleted. Here's a team that we thought would be good, but a lot of people weren't really giving them a lot of credit. And I'm really excited about what they're doing. They got the Seahawks in Seattle, as we mentioned this week. Then they got the 49ers, Lions. They got some tough competition coming up. So
They
I
do.
think, the halfway mark, it's going to be interesting. So look, it's your team. Go for it.
Okay, I'm giving them a A, and that's probably a little high. But the reason I'm giving an A is because they've been had a ton of injuries. They lost their number one offensive lineman. They lost their number one or two, depending where you consider Chris Godwin. He was having a better year actually than Mike Evans last year, I think. So you could argue he's right there. Before the season started, they didn't have him, and then the day they getting back, they lose Mike Evans. So it's like you get one, lose one. Now they're saying Bucky Irving's probably going to miss this week. Like they've been ravished with injuries, and they were able to win 3 games. Most importantly, they won their division game against their only real division opponent. I don't care about New Orleans, Carolina, by beating Atlanta. That was huge. So, and you played very competitive to an Eagles team that you beat, and just by playing competitive with it, and when you're injured, you made sure to let the locker room know, yeah, we lost this round, but we beat them the time before, and next time it could be our game. So I feel like they did good. If I'm them with the injuries they had, 3-1, that's an A report card for me saying, okay, we're going to win this division that we're winning. We beat our opponent, the Atlanta, and if we win this division and we're healthy, we can beat anybody in the playoffs. So it's an A because honestly, they really beat up starting the year.
Yeah, look, I'd probably give them like a B plus, just because their matchups are so tight, but they're playing pretty well. I'm very excited to see what they're
Mhm.
going to do. All right, so I think this is the division. Honestly, we need to talk about the least. It is by far the worst
Yes.
division. It is every single team. Nobody has a positive plus point differential. You have the Falcons at 2-2 with -10. You got the Panthers at 1-3 with -20, and then the New Orleans Saints at 0-4 with -55. Mr. Spencer Rattler may be getting a lot of completions, maybe throwing the ball a lot. They're the fastest pace in the NFL, by the way. And I don't know if that's a great thing. Clearly, it's not
Not
working out too
necessarily.
well. So let's just write off that division. I think, look, probably like an F, I guess, for the Saints. I mean, you can't get much worse than that. But NFC North, I feel like it's one of the hottest divisions in football, the highest
That's a fun
contested
division. Fun division.
division. So the Lions are one of my favorite teams. It's a team that, with Ben Johnson leaving to Chicago,
Mhm.
same division, moving across town, people are not really giving them a lot of credit. They put up a lot of points. They put up 52 once. They have a plus 49 point differential. They have
Number
two,
one
in
in the
terms of
NFL.
fantasy guys, number one in the NFL. They have two first round picks, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameer Gibbs.
Yep.
Flashy players. The
Mhm.
best backup running back in David Montgomery. They are Jamison Williams, Jared Goff. Amazing offense. And the defense is still pressuring really well. This is a team that's a clear A plus for me. When it comes to the Packers, I feel I'm still not believing in them. They're still atop the power rankings. They're now at seventh, but I think they're, I guess, still a Super Bowl contender. I'm not going to completely write them off. They're 2-1-1. They just put up 40 against the Cowboys, but they just let up 40 against the Cowboys. They couldn't even get a win versus Dallas. Here's a team that has a great offense in Dallas, but like one of the worst defenses. Two of the worst. Sorry, by the way, stat for that game, two of the best offensive performances we've seen this year. Also, two of the worst defensive performances we saw that year in the Sunday Night Football
Mhm.
game against Packers and Cowboys. I don't like the Packers. I don't want anything to do with them. I'll I guess they're fine. They've put up enough points. They've had solid wins. I'll give them a C plus, B minus for that. For me, the Vikings, 2-2 plus 22-point differential. They're playing a lot better than I expected. JJ McCarthy isn't even playing. They have Carson Wentz now playing. They have one of the best defenses, even though they let up a lot of runs. I'm interested to see what they're going to do this year, but I'll give them probably like a C plus and B plus. I'll give them a B plus. They're doing much better than
Okay.
I expected them to do. Um, and with the Bears, I guess a C minus. Like they're 2-2, minus 16-point differential. Their offense has highs and lows. Roma Odunze is doing pretty well.
Mm.
Sorry to run through this division so quickly, but I just want
No,
to
no.
give you the floor with it. Go wherever you want.
Well, I'm going to start at the bottom, work my way up. For the Bears, this is a incomplete is what I'm going to give this if I was a grade because this season is just becoming can Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson work, and I really don't care about the record as much. Like, yeah, I don't want to see them get ugly, but I just got to see the season play out. I need a little more time with that combination. So I'm giving them an incomplete. I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I do like Roma Dunze. Looks like he's getting even better, so that has some good potential there, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. Minnesota, I'm going to go with B minus. I almost went with incomplete for them too. You got McCarthy played. He played really bad, honestly. He had one great quarter, but then seven bad quarters, and it was against the Bears, which we see as the defense is not good. And then you got Carson Wentz. I mean, I will say their defense looks great, and if Brian Flores can't get a coaching job after this year, then he's blackballed. That would be my guess, like because like he's doing an amazing job. To B minus with the way they handle it, plus 22 for the quarterback issues they've had. I like what they're doing.
I think for the Vikings, though, look, I think they kind of dropped the ball with letting Sam Darnold go. But the fact that they're
It's looking
doing what
better.
they're doing with going all in on JJ McCarthy, a guy who's injured, and having to rely on Carson Wentz, having 2 games in a row in London,
Hmm.
I'm happy to see what they're doing. Yes, they did just lose, and who knows what they're even going to do. I think the Cleveland Browns can easily pressure them really well, and I think that could easily be like a 13-10 game. Good luck over there, guys. I think
Yeah.
B plus. Just want to correct myself. B plus is probably a little too aggressive. I agree with you with the B minus, but I feel more positive about them because I've seen a lot more positivity based on the turmoil they've gone through.
No, I do like it. But anything in the B is still a good grade. I feel like at least when I was in school. So I think B
Yeah.
minus is a good grade. I like what they're doing because for the difficulties they're facing, the off-season decisions a little differently. Green Bay. Wow, this is my biggest, maybe, no, not biggest. I'll say, I think I have one more, but my second biggest disappointment of the year. I mean, you had an offensive lineman mentioned undefeated. You look at they lose to the Browns. You're thinking that's no that. Oh, at the trap game. Every team that's ever played a trap game in my mind, like that I can remember. I'm sure it's not true. Dominates the next game, especially against an inferior opponent, which Dallas is. How is that a tie? And if anything, you were closer to losing than winning. Like Dak almost runs it in. It was closer to a loss than a win, and it ends as a tie. So disappointed. Just so disappointing. I have to go for them. I was gonna go meaner, but I'm gonna go C. I was gonna go C minus. I'll give them a C. I am terribly disappointed. This team is all the talent in the world. The first 2 games they look amazing, and I'm like, just what is going on here? They look I don't know the word silly, immature, very disappointed. Super early, like you mentioned about if this was a company, so you have plenty of time to turn around. This is not a season ranking; it's a quarter ranking. For this quarter, super disappointing. This quarter has a tie against the Cowboys team, which nobody believes is that good. A loss to the Browns. This quarter has to be graded pretty lowly. So I'm going to go with a C. Incredibly disappointing. Probably my second most in the NFL. Detroit, I just want to say, I said this last week. I want to double down. Dan Campbell, Dan Campbell, Dan Campbell. Because everybody said, and we questioned before the season started, like, oh, what happens when you lose coordinators? Well, let me see. Aaron Glenn, the Jets might be the worst team in the NFL. So I'm not saying Aaron Glenn isn't good. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. That doesn't make you a great coach. Maybe he's not. And Ben Johnson, his story is more interesting. 2-2. I'm not saying doing bad, but it's an interesting story. But the Lions, they still got trickery. I saw it without Ben Johnson. They still got defense. I saw it without Aaron Glenn. So do we just not give Dan Campbell enough credit? I feel like the entire NFL, they talk about him in a fun way, like he's almost a character, but obviously he can coach. I think, and you notice as well as anybody when it comes to like your guy Nick Sirianni, where people will still don't give credit. Like, and this is the same coaching class, if you will. By coaching class, like they came to the NFL at the same time, same year. Like, you got to give the guy all the credit in the world. His team looks phenomenal. They got the highest point differential, three straight. I give him everything, and he's doing that to the locker room where he has to talk to defensive players that lost their defensive coordinator, offensive players lost their offensive coordinator. Can't say enough. Love Detroit, and they're just fun to watch. They're fun to watch. every player on the team starts in fantasy. As in, like Sam Laporta is starting on somebody's fantasy team. You know Amon
I'm
Brand
so
Gonzalez.
disappointed by
You
him.
know Gibbs is like everybody is starting.
I'm so
The golf,
disappointed by Sam Laporta
Jameson
though.
Williams.
Just
Yeah,
fantasy
but
wise,
still, dude,
I'll be
this team is
honest. But
stacked.
yeah, no, they're all
But that's
starters.
even
I haven't benched him once. I can't. I've Goddard
even
as
though you're
well as a
disappointed.
backup.
What
I
if he
can't
starts
bench
playing
him.
well? What if he starts playing well though? What's that mean for the team? If they're doing this well and he's not even playing well,
Absolutely. No, I mean they're the best
like
point differential in
they're
football.
stacked.
They're a team that everybody was like, well, we have to bet against them because they're losing these guys, and they're still as aggressive. We know Dan Campbell's gonna absolutely be the most aggressive team in the league. Ben Johnson called it out. He's like, well, that's just what Dan does. Sorry, I'm not surprised one bit. And the best thing about them, I feel, is that Puka Nacua thing, right? So. Puka Nacua, yeah, he's a fifth round draft pick, sleeper, went to BYU, so you're not really thinking he's going to be all that good. He surprises us. Dan Campbell, we think of like the best NFL coaches as these like sloppy old men. We got Andy Reid, pretty heavy set, doesn't really take care of his health too well. And we got like Bill Belichick,
Nope.
come on. And then you got Dan Campbell. Here's a man that lifts heavy. He doesn't look like the sort of head coach that we're used to seeing dominate. But here's a guy that it's such a lovable team. You know, I know the Eagles are going to be hated not only because they're Philadelphia, but because they're defending champs and because they have guys like AJ Brown demanding more play.
Mhm.
They also are extremely talented. They have, some of the
Yes,
best. I guess we could just jump to that division, the next division in
sure.
NFC.
The next one.
The Eagles are still the Super Bowl favorite in my eyes. They're number two on the power rankings, right behind the Bills. They're one of the best teams, but that offensive line is really scaring me. Here's a team that was allowing Saquon to get like 4.5 yards before he was even touched. Now it's like 1.5 to 2 max. So here's a guy in Saquon that needs, to go like 4, 5, 6, 59 yards, 4, 5, 6, 78 yards. Like he needs to grind to be able to explode. He needs space to be able to really get out there. And here's a passing offense. I mean, one of the worst stats I've ever seen. The Eagles are the only team in the last 2 years that didn't complete a pass in the second half. They did that yesterday or this week. They called 11 pass plays, 8 incompletions, 2 sacks, and one
I
scramble by Hurts.
think it was
Like
minus 18 yards,
disgusting, disgusting. And then
and that was
-1 yard in the first half versus the Rams. They've had two of the worst halves I've ever seen. Yet this is a
well, that's
team.
it. They have the two statistical worst halves of the NFL. If you take every
Yeah,
half of every game this year, they have
yeah.
the two worst,
The good
and
thing,
they are
and
the
I'll
two.
let you go. 20 wins in a row when Jalen Hurts starts and finishes a game.
Mhm.
Yet
Uh,
they still are turmoil. Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, super
mhm.
injured. This is a team that's star-studded. I'll say it again, and I'm not losing faith because we are only a quarter way in, and I'm so happy they're 4-0. There's only two undefeated teams, Bills and the Eagles, and I believe they should be at the top because of that. But I'm not feeling great about either of them, and I don't feel like I'm locked and loaded. I think there's 7, 8 teams, and they all have pretty much the same percentage of winning, like at least the top five. I'm scared.
you know, that's fair. Like you're a fan. Fan stands for fanatic, so you can have like bigger mood swings in there. Uh,
Absolutely.
for a grade, I'll tell you, I want to grade on a curve. I want to make that clear. So like bad teams, I see more impressive. I'm giving the Eagles an A minus, because anybody else would get an A plus for them, but I'm just grading them as Super Bowl champs. So the 4-0 holds a little less water because of that, and I do have some of the worries you say, but I feel like Tim, you love basketball. You go to the park and play with kids, right? Well, with people. So who do you think would win? Two very good players at the park, or three just good players? So it's 3-on-2. They're not as good, but there's three of them.
Three.
3-on-2 outnumber. Okay, that makes sense
Yeah.
because the Eagles are the only team playing with three units because their special teams is at another level. They're playing basically with three units where the other teams are playing with two units. So even if their offense and defense are playing a little worse than some of the other teams they're playing, say the Rams. I think the Rams had a better defense and a better offense, but they had two units and the Eagles had three units, and that's what I want. Their special teams is playing another level. And I guess the worry would be, can they keep it up? Because averaging almost a touchdown a game on special teams, which they've been doing, is hard to keep up. But you know, special teams, nobody talks about them. I mentioned like Dan Campbell doesn't get credit. Nobody talks special teams at all. And understand it's not flashy, it's not fantasy football, nobody cares. That's when you go take, go to the bathroom, special teams time. Let's walk away. But their special teams dominate. So I like that. If you're an Eagles fan, if you got glass half full, glass half empty. Half empty, they don't look great. Glass half full, they don't look great, but they're undefeated, which means the ceiling
Yeah.
could be a lot better. Yeah, it's hard to knock anything. I want to give A minus based on the grade of Super Bowl champs. I expect a little better. I think the rest of the division we can go through pretty quick.
Yeah, that's why I was
I'll give a
excited
little
about
extra time
them,
to my Giants.
after the Rams because it was, a awful first half, and they still were able to win. And yeah, absolutely. With the Bucks, like, yeah, the worst second half we've ever seen, but they still pulled out the win. But with the special teams, I feel like that's the biggest differential with like last year versus this year. We have new kickoff rules. Everybody's talking about these balls that they're not able to like massage. So there's
Hmm.
launching them so much further than they used to. And everybody's saying, even Vic Fangio had a press conference the other day, Eagles defensive coordinator. He's like, Aubrey's going to kick a 70-yard field goal this year. I hope you all know that. So, look, the Cowboys, next team, they jumped in the sharp power rankings from 24 to 19 this week. So they're still outside the playoffs, and I don't think any team in this division makes the playoffs outside the Eagles. I still stand by that. But putting up 40 points, Dak Prescott being by far the guy making most completions. They did that without CeeDee Lamb. They have George Pickens, Javonte Williams. Their running backs performing a lot better than I thought they would do. Here
Yeah,
was
much better
clearly
than I
the
thought.
worst running backs in the league. Everybody was saying, don't draft these guys. But Javonte Williams is
Hmm.
one of the best, guys going into this week that you want in fantasy. I think the Cowboys are, even though they're 1-2-1, I think they're performing a little worse than expected, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to write them off completely because they show at least the ability to put up 40 to 50 points.
Yeah, the Cowboys. First of all, they're fun. They're a fun watch. Offensive teams are more fun to
Sure.
watch. So
Yeah.
they're a fun watch, which is great for the NFL. It's great for it's America's team. They still get the most like eyes on them, so that's great for the NFL that they're a fun watch. I've heard the comparison to last year's Cincinnati, where it's all offense, no defense. I'll go one even farther back, and people don't make the comparison to say because they don't look alike these players. This reminds me of the Saints during the stretch when they gave Drew Brees all the money and it went 3 straight years. They went 7-9, and they didn't have that star receiver. I'm saying that because CeeDee Lamb is out right now. They didn't have like the super big name receivers, but the quarterback was just throwing it around the field the way Dak is throwing it, throwing 5,000 yards each season, which Dak I think is on pace for. And yet, but they were ending at 7-9. It reminds me of that team where it's all offense, quarterback without that huge name receiver. Just while CeeDee Lamb is at least is injured, but they can't make the playoffs because their defense is too bad. It's a fun watch, and I'm impressed from the standpoint. If you remove the offseason, say forget wrong decisions, because people say made wrong decisions. Since game one, since you said, okay, coach, here we go, Brian Shatner, what can you do with us? I'm actually impressed. I know it's only 1-2-1, but for what I thought they would be, I mean, I thought they were going to be bad, like 6 wins bad. So, I give them a B. I give them a B overall. And you could say there's hope if those draft picks they got from Micah, if they could get two defensive starters, then they could make the defense a little better. And if Dak can play at this level for another 3 years, then next year they could do something. This year they could at least be fun for their fans, which is more than 7 or 8 teams that we can name that are not fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm impressed with Dak's aggressiveness. He's running the ball a lot
Very.
more effectively than he did last couple of years. He said he was kind of injured, and this year he seems to be right. So I'm a little bit more scared of them than I thought I would be going into the season. I still think the Eagles are miles ahead of any team in this division. The Commanders, I feel like there's not even a lot to talk about. They're 2-2. They're pretty mediocre. I think they're a solid C. They're not really playing that well. I'm honestly less impressed, but they also don't have Jaden Daniels, so I don't even know how to really grade them. Marcus Mariota, I believe, is a lot better than people give them credit for. A guy that runs the ball very well. I think honestly, all four quarterbacks, Jackson Dart included, rush the ball incredibly well. Jackson Dart's incredibly aggressive. He'll like stiff arm guys down the field. He's probably getting injured like in 2 or 3 games. But, Russell
He
Wilson's
does
got to
look like
keep
it might
ready.
be. Please no.
Do you have anything to say about the
This
Commanders? I feel like it's one of the most like boring teams in the league.
this might be. the fastest division if you take all four quarterbacks, because every other division you get Lamar Jackson is like one super slow quarterback. Every division, every quarterback here can run. You mentioned that to a level. The Commanders very disappointed. For me, I'm grading them as a C minus because Jaden Daniels being injured is terrifying, and that matters. Availability is the best ability, and the fact, especially since he's small, like that was pre-draft. People like, what about his frame? So if I'm a Commanders fan, I'm like, oh shit. Year two, he's already injured. Last year, he got beat up, but he continued to play. This is a scary trend. And they put a decent amount of money. They had the old secret recipe of rookie quarterback. We could spend money. They bought the high players from the Niners, the two defensive stars that they paid for. They bought a Debo Samuels. They put a lot of money for a team that's not impressing me much at all. So that's a C minus. I'll jump to the Giants. For the Giants, the defense is a little disappointing, but I think, and maybe this is positive speaking, I think the defense is better than they were in the first three games because I honestly think the defense couldn't get up, so to say, because of Russell Wilson. I don't want to put it all on one guy, but like
It's fair.
the way he was playing, particularly in game three, I think the defense just almost kind of gave up. And you could see, I'm watching the game against the Chargers. That defense is so much better than they were playing the first two games because they feel the excitement. The crowd is so into it. It's a Giants game. Everybody's going bananas. I don't know if you saw Jackson Dart's now the number one selling jersey in the NFL. At least this past week.
I
Everybody's going
believe it.
bananas. The energy is there. Defense is an energy position more than any position because it's just, mano a mano strength. You got to beat your man. So if you're feeling like down, like the offense isn't going to do much, you're not going to be able to go past the offensive lineman. You're not going to do it. You're not going to want to tackle somebody. It hurts. So it was fun to see. Great win. I mean, the Chargers are a good team. So that's a great win. But on the
Absolutely.
negative, you lost Malik Neighbors. Jackson Dart, I'm terrified, is going to hurt himself because I don't think he gets the concept of sliding. So that scares me. But as a fan, just the excitement alone, that alone gives me. I'm overstating this. I know I'm a fan. I'm going to say a B minus because if we've had such a bad quarterback situation that if Jackson Dart is actually the quarterback, then this is an A plus plus. I don't care if we don't win another game, but if he's like a true franchise quarterback after going what has been like 7, 8 years, because even before Eli retired, like before Eli was like franchise level, it's been about 10 years. So that would be everything. And at least at the minimum, it was fun to watch the last game. Just like I mentioned, Cowboys fun. It was fun to watch for the first time in a long time. I'm happy. I don't care about the record. I'm happy on what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a team that was going to make the playoffs, so it's really just about excitement. And with Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart, here's guys that plow through everybody, and they're going to be fun. And they've probably the best defensive line in the game, like talent-wise. And I think obviously Neighbors is a bad injury. I think we got to get rid of turf fields on every
Oh
pitch
my God,
possible.
please.
It's disgusting how many injuries. John Gruden went off today, talking about injuries and basically how we're not allowed to practice, we're not allowed to hit, we can't have padded practices. All we do is hit the weight rooms, over train all of our ligaments and muscles, and yet we don't get on the field and actually play football enough. So when we finally hit, when we finally try to block, the offensive lines are always really bad in the beginning of the season, which is why I don't
Hmm.
want to like super worry myself about the Eagles or even a team like the Broncos that have a terrible offensive line right now, awful offense in general. We'll save the AFC next, but I like the Giants. Very impressed by that win. The Chargers are really good. They were 6.5 point favorites for a reason.
Hmm.
I'm very impressed by that win, but I'm not shocked. As I told you before the game, here's a guy in Justin Herbert to get hit more than anybody, one of the sack leaders in the game. Second to guys like Lamar Jackson and some of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Cam Ward's number one, Drake May's number three, Kyler Murray's number four. Like that's not a category you want to be in. So Justin Herbert, I guess we could switch to that division. I'm
Yeah.
impressed, very impressed by the Los Angeles Chargers. Here's a team that I felt like had a lot of faith. I had a lot of faith in them, but now they're down their two best offensive linemen, probably their two best players, honestly, and Joe Alt and Slater. But still, I think they're one of the best teams in the league. I think, in terms of the power rankings, they are now number 8. They dropped 4 slots after that Giants loss, but I got a lot of faith in them. I think they could figure it out. I don't know about making a giant run in the playoffs, but look, they're leading a division that's really tough. The Chiefs are doing a lot worse than expected, but still, in that division, we got the Chargers at 3-1, Chiefs at 2-2, Broncos at 2-2, and the Raiders at 1-3. For me, Raiders are one of the worst teams in the league. One of my best picks of the week is Colts minus 6.5. I think they're going to dominate that game. I'm very excited about the Colts, but I want to focus on the AFC West. Who's one
Yes.
of the teams you want to talk about in that division?
I mean, I think you can't talk about the West without talking about the Chiefs.
Hmm.
It feels like for them, it's a grade on a curve. I'm giving them a minus, and I know that's the same grade as the Eagles, which might sound high, but I'm basing it off the fact that if Xavier Worthy was injured 3 minutes earlier, i.e., before the game actually started, and you said they went into the season with him injured, then I don't mind them being 2-2 for having no Worthy for three of the games, having no Rice. And it feels like they basically, for lack of better words, killed the Baltimore Ravens. As in, like they didn't intentionally injure anybody, but like they're down 3-1 and no Lamar Jackson. Did they just end their season? Oh, so that alone, you just took out one of your two basically big competitions. That's normally Baltimore and Buffalo. So now you have one that you might not have to worry about. There's a chance. I think they still make the playoffs, but they might not. So you might have just taken that team off the table, and mentally you shot them for good. So they really just don't feel like a threat to you. So, and you didn't beat Philly, but I think you played good enough that if you played again in the Super Bowl for the third time, you wouldn't have to be coming in with off that 40-point loss. You could come in and say, hey, you know what? We played well, and we did it without Worthy and without Rice, assuming they'd both be back by then if nobody gets injured again. So we can play this team. So I think the Chiefs are still the favorite, even though they're not the record favorite. I still have the Chiefs easily in my top five Super Bowl bubble. I like what the Chargers are doing, but I got to see it in the playoffs. I said it last week. I think the last time we spoke, Chargers for me, it's all about the playoffs. I got to see it in the playoffs, even though they're doing everything right. And we know we've seen it offensive line, offensive line. You talk about the Eagles worry. You look when the Chiefs got crushed against Tampa a couple years in the Super Bowl, or even this last time when the offensive lines aren't playing well and they lost two offensive linemen. It's hard to win games if your offensive line is beat up. You could drop to the Raiders. They have maybe the all worst offensive line in the NFL, at least running wise. They can't block anybody. I know Genty finally had a good game. So, oh my. And Gino is looking like he's taking a big step back. Maybe Seattle was great, and that's why they're playing so well this year. But Gino's taking a step back. And Denver is a big disappointment for me. I know that was
Big.
a great win against Cincinnati, but
Yeah.
Cincinnati with no Joe Burrow is not much for me. And this Denver
Hmm.
team, I said I didn't think a lot of them, but everybody else is telling me that, oh my God, I think they might, like I said, I think I mentioned last time, they were number six preseason Super Bowl pick. Like, super loved. I'm like, don't count much for playing against a Cincinnati team that has been giving up basically like 300 yards to like Joe Flacco. Like, everybody moves the ball on them.
Hmm.
So that doesn't mean much to me. I still have some Bo Nix questions there.
They're two
So
and
I'm going,
two, and their two losses are really close. They had a 1 point loss versus Colts in Indy, and they had a 3 point loss versus the Chargers in Los Angeles. And the Chargers came back, and finally just Justin Herbert had that, comeback win. They did absolutely
mhm.
mollywop probably the two worst teams, sadly, with Joe Burrow out, with the Bengals and the Titans. These are teams that can't protect anybody. We talk about, Cam Ward leading the league in sacks. Like, I'm really, really scared for Jake Browning. That is one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen in my life.
Look,
So I'm
my problem
not.
with the Broncos, I understand what you're saying about the Broncos, except my one problem is if you go back to last year, they two teams that are under 500 or at, and they lost to the teams over 500. So they still, with Bo Nix as a starter, they have not beaten a playoff team. And we'll see if Cincinnati makes the playoffs, because which they probably won't. Going back last year, they were 7-1 against playoff. Sorry, 1-7 against playoff teams. The one win with the Chiefs backup. So we're throwing that out. So let's call it a win 7 against playoff teams, which last year did. And they beat Cincinnati last year, who did not make the playoffs. So just for record. And then this year, they're if the playoffs started today, they're 0-2 against current playoff teams. I understand they're close losses, but I need to see them win some good games. That's what I gotta see, and they haven't done it yet.
No, I agree. I'm very disappointed in them. I was a little worried though. I wasn't buying this team completely. I was intrigued to see what the Chargers would do. I think the Chiefs would drop back a little bit, but still, by the end of the day, they could even go 10-7, make the playoffs, and I'd still would be like, they're got to be one of the favorites. It's going to be between the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens. The Ravens are the clear team that have
Mhm.
dropped off terribly. The Ravens are letting up. I don't know if you want to jump to the AFC North, but I feel like the AFC North is one of the
We can
number
jump
one
and then come back.
teams, yeah, divisions we want to talk about. But no, let's finish it off. You got anything else to talk about with the Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos? Like, I'm excited about the Chargers, but I don't really think they're going to win more than one playoff game. I think the Chiefs doesn't really matter how much they do in the regular season. It's all about the playoffs, and
No.
I still think they're easily going to make the AFC Championship game. I'm just curious if the Bills are actually going to surpass them. With the Broncos, I don't buy them. I think they're probably just going to miss the playoffs. If anything, they make the playoffs, and they're playing like the Texans or the Colts, and they could
Mm,
even lose that one. And the Raiders, I think, are the worst team in the league. One of them.
wow. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I go Raiders to be the worst, but they're definitely the
They're
worst in that
one of the
division.
cross-offs.
They're bad. Yeah. They're
Raiders,
definitely a
Jets,
cross-off team. They're a
Panthers,
cross-off team.
Dolphins,
Yeah.
Saints,
Cross-off
garbage.
for sure. All of them. No, I think that division is covered. I like the Chargers. I want to see the Chargers play the Chiefs the second time to see how that goes. That would be a test. If they could beat the Chiefs the second time, I would be ready to
Yeah.
kind of jump on board because
Huh?
next time you're going to have Rasheed Rice and you're going to have Xavier Worthy, assuming he's healthy. So if they could beat that Chiefs, then I would be a little more impressed.
Yeah. Look, it's clearly the most exciting team. So let's jump to the AFC North. One of the most
Okay,
gritty divisions. The Browns,
interesting
minus
one.
46 point differential.
And that's not even last.
Nope, third last. Third
Mhm.
to last. It's pretty
Mhm.
bad.
We got the
Look,
Bengals
Miles
minus 58.
Miles Garrett is clearly the guy that you got to worry about. He's a game wrecker. Outside of that, they got nobody. Judkins, people like Judkins, want to give him some credit. I don't think that's really a team we need to talk about. They're one of the cross-offs for sure, or at least, I guess they're in that like Giants tier. The Giants and Browns are kind of in the
Yeah.
same boat. I kind of want to watch them because of a few talented players, and that's about it. The Ravens are the team that I was like, okay,
Well,
yeah, they're
that's the
Super
team.
Bowl favorites. But we even said it day one. Like, I don't buy it. They have constantly let us down in the playoffs. And
Could
yeah,
do a
they
whole
have a tough
podcast just on them.
matchup. They have a tough matchup, the first 4 weeks, but they're 1-3 still. And they've let up 33.3 points per game. Disgusting.
Yeah, I'd give the Ravens, I'm gonna jump right in there. I give the Ravens a D minus. I was gonna go
Yeah.
to F, but the only
They
reason I'm
just gotta
going not
win.
going to F is not because they have an A win. Honestly, I wouldn't care if they were 0 and 4.
That's the Browns.
That's not why.
You're right.
It's because honestly, if they were 0 and 4, I'd still give them probably a D minus. And the reason I'm not giving them an F is because they're still favored to win the division according to Vegas.
By
Like
far.
relatively
The
heavily favored.
Steelers are plus
Yeah,
280.
that's what I'm saying. So like because of that division, and I don't trust the Steelers, and we could mention them will be the next team we'll probably cover because there's not much to talk about Cleveland or Cincinnati. They're still going to probably win the division most likely, unless they could lose it, but it would be hard. I think it'd be hard for them to lose that division unless Lamar Jackson has gone for like 4 games. Right now they're talking 2 or 3. Maybe it gets up to 4. That would change. But if you're the Ravens, you lost a heartbreaker in one of the most miserable ways to Buffalo. That's one of the worst ways you could lose. But yeah, people, you know what's fun about the Ravens? You can debate what hurts more, getting blown out by the Chiefs or to come back against Buffalo. Like people debate, what is it worse to get blown out or is it worse to have a comeback loss? Well, they have that decision they
Yeah,
can
that
think
one
about.
point loss.
So they lost to their two rivals, the two teams they can't beat in the playoffs because they can't beat the Bills in the playoffs too. If you go back to last year, they can't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. They've lost to both of them. They got Lamar Jackson's injured. They have arguably the worst defense in the NFL. I mean, they just have everything going wrong. Their record's 1-3, and without Lamar Jackson, they could easily end up being 1-5 soon. But I think this division can be 1-10, maybe 9 wins. Nine might win this division because I don't trust Pittsburgh, which would be the next team we could talk about. But so that's their one saving grace. The only reason they don't have an F is that they're favored to win the division. And forget Vegas' opinion, my opinion, I think they win the division. I don't think it's a very good division. So that's what's keeping them afloat in a division that every team is under negative point differential. So they are lucky they're in that division. If they win a tough division, they might be eliminated already basically from the playoffs.
They did already play their three toughest matchups. They're Buffalo, Chiefs, and the Lions. Pretty tough, but Hamilton had a interesting quote basically saying, we got to fix things. And if somebody like that, the leader of the defense, is publicly coming out and being like, yeah, we got to fix things, like, you got to worry about that. And, him and Lamar both missed practice today. Just if you're a Super Bowl favorite and now all of a sudden you drop to like the 10th team, oof, not great. When you got the Colts and Chargers ahead of you in the power rankings, that's not where you want to be after the first quarter. I get it, a D minus purely based on schedule, but easily one of the biggest disappointments, easily the one of the biggest disappointments of the regular season so far. And the other team is the Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase, I feel so bad for you, man. They're at least 2-2. They are minus 58 point differential though. That is disgusting. That is second worst in the NFL.
Yep.
The worst is the Tennessee Titans at minus 69, which that's a team we don't even need to talk about. But yeah, look, they
Let's get rid
started,
of.
Joe Burrow got the two wins, and they lost two games by 38 points and 25 points. They got the Lions, the Packers, the Steelers coming up. Good luck. Don't know when Joe
Yep.
Burrow's coming back, but yeah, I'm nervous. Well, not even nervous because I don't even think they got a shot. At that point, Joe Burrow should sit out the whole year. Here's a guy you want to bank on your future. You gave all the money to your offense, and what's that doing for you right now? You couldn't even pay Hendrickson. He's not even performing right now because he doesn't really have the opportunities to rush the passer right now because all they're going to do is run the ball, run out the clock. Everybody's going to blow this team out. This is one of the worst offensive lines, like I said before, in the league. It's disgusting what the Broncos just did to them.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, I feel bad for them. I certainly feel bad for them. And what sucks for them is this is their opportunity. We talk about how bad Baltimore is. I don't think either one of us has faith in Pittsburgh. We can cover that a little bit if you want, but I mean, if Joe Burrow's healthy, you end the second game of the year winning. I know he got injured that game. If he's healthy, you're 2-0 with a healthy Joe Burrow. And you're looking at Baltimore, who's starting to fall apart. Lamar Jackson gets in. This is your chance. Like, okay, we can win this division, and we can be in a spot to really make a deep playoff run because the division is very winnable with Lamar Jackson being the way he is, and Pittsburgh is just, Pittsburgh. It's just like they're Groundhog's Day. They're going to make the playoffs and lose in the first round. They got their own thing.
Yeah,
So
they're on
it,
track.
it, it's got to burn. It's just got to be killing you if you're a Cincinnati fan. Oh my God! I
Yeah,
mean, avoid the bleach. Don't drink the bleach
yeah.
because it's just brutal. I feel bad for him. I guess if Joe Burrow could come back, and some people say he's done for the year, some people say late December. If he could, should he?
Why?
That would be a more
Yeah,
interesting
should
question.
he?
That would be our
Exactly.
fourth
Why
quarter
come
review.
back?
Is should he come back? I would say no, unless Baltimore like completely falls off. If Baltimore for some reason is we're 14 games in, and Baltimore is sitting there at like 5-7, and maybe you're sitting at 5-7 yourself. And you're like, okay, we can make a run for this division. 9 games, you're going to win it, maybe. But outside of that, I would say no. No, let yourself get healthy.
Yeah. I am a little impressed with the Steelers just to close off the division real quick.
Hmm.
They haven't really played anybody great though, in those wins. They beat the Jets, the Patriots, and the Vikings. Vikings do have a
Yes,
good defense, but it was still a London game. Aaron Rodgers is looking better than expected, I guess, but it's mainly because of DK Metcalf and that amazing athleticism he has. He Aaron
hmm,
Rodgers is really only making the same couple of throws, and here's a guy that needs to make quick throws. Luckily, he's got some good workhorses. I'm interested what Caleb Johnson has to do, one of their running backs, but he's like third string on their depth chart with Warren out, and Kenneth Gainwell had a great game. They have a few fantasy performers, but once again, they're a team that's probably going to go 500, make the playoffs, lose first round. Not really too exciting,
definitely.
not really too much to talk about. And the next division is another shit division. We got the Titans at the bottom of that division. The Houston Texans, one of our least favorite teams, even though they're plus 13
Yes.
point differential, they're still 1-3. Here's a team that has a great defense, but I'm still very disappointed in them. They got Christian Kirk, they got Nico Collins. They just have a terrible offensive line. This is a terrible organization. They're building a team in the worst way possible. They look just like the Bengals, but just a little bit better of a defense. The Jaguars, I'm pretty impressed by, mainly because of their defense. Very disappointed in their offense. But similar to Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence probably is on his last leg. I'm really disappointed in Brian Thomas Jr. though. And the Colts, one of my favorite teams of the year.
Wow.
One of my favorite picks, like I said, minus 6.5 this week. I think you could take that money and run. Plus 40 point differential, 3-1. I think they're clearly going to win this division, even though they're tied with the Jaguars. I just think they're outperforming them tremendously. And crazy enough, Daniel Jones looks good. What do you think about this
He
division?
looks really. Yeah, I mean, the Colts they got to be the most biggest surprise in like a good way. And we spoke about maybe the Ravens, and I think the Packers are in the discussion for biggest disappointment. Colts, I mean, bravo for them. Daniel Jones looks really good, which is very shocking to me as a Giants fan. They got defense and offense. There's really no weak spot. Their weak spot was quarterback. So Daniel Jones playing well. They got weapons. They got great defense. Like, where's the weak spot? They got great coaches. I mean, they could be 4-0. They could have beat the Rams easily. If that guy doesn't drop the ball running in the end zone, who knows? They could easily be 4-0. This team looks great. I think they're going to run away with the division also because I don't think Jacksonville can keep this up. They've caused 13 turnovers in 4 games.
Great
That's
point.
not a pace they're going to keep up. I don't want turnovers. They're not Turnovers aren't luck. I don't want to say that at all because that's unfair. Just like I gave the Eagles credit on special teams, but you don't want to keep winning games that way because it's just too hard to do. And there's no guarantee you can keep it up. And long term, if you're Jacksonville, I don't want to say winning is everything because you need to have a winning season every once in a while. You can't just keep having losing seasons. So it's probably happy to a fan. Like, oh, we make the playoffs, that'll be fun. But we got this quarterback who's like the fifth most expensive quarterback in the NFL or something, so you can't trade him. He's underperforming. He seems kind of like very reminds me of Kyler Murray also that you mentioned him as far as they both kind of seem like not really into football. It's not a passion for them. It's like the similarities there. They're both uber talented, number 1 picks, high
Yeah.
contracts, and but
Yeah.
both kind of feel like football is their second priority to their life outside of football. That's what it feels like. But yeah, Jacksonville's defense is going good. And, maybe even when you say the defense offense thing, you could split it down to one player if you want to say Travis Hunter playing great defense, and you're not seeing the offense production. So if he's the dual player that does both, that's like the team. He represents the team. The defense is doing it, the offense is not. So I think
And they gave
I
up
don't see the
everything
standings
for
changing.
him.
Yeah, they gave
And
it a
they
lot. So
got
now next year, what do you do?
exactly. And they got the Chiefs, Seahawks, Rams coming up. That's tough.
Oof, that is
Yeah.
real tough.
Yeah. And
Very
like you
disappointing in
said,
Houston, but not surprised.
plus 2.3 point differential per game. That's not something you could count on.
Yeah, that's
I know they
not
have a great
you can't
defense, but
maintain that.
there's a little luck there.
No,
There's a reason why
absolutely.
gamblers always think about that when they're looking at last year compared to this year. It's like, all right, what was the
Exactly,
point, turnover differential? All right, last division,
100%.
our division, the AFC East. We got the Bills at 4-0, the kings of the NFL. Let's start there. Like, do you think they're Super Bowl favorites right now? Do you fully believe in them being Super Bowl favorites? Is this finally the Bills' year? The only New York team we got?
They've earned the right to be Super Bowl favorites. They're not my favorite. I'm sorry, they're not. I have them third. I go.
Who would be your
I know it
favorite?
sounds. I,
Not the
I know it's
Bucks.
weird to say that. I know it's weird to do the cliche rematch, but I got Eagles, Chiefs, Bills in that
That's
order
fair.
because I know I hate to be the guy that picks the repeat team from last year. That's like kind of cop out stance. But for the Bills, you got to get past the Chiefs. That's all I care about. They might get lucky that they might not have to worry about Baltimore, but you still got to get
Hmm.
past the Chiefs. Until I see it, then I don't care. So until they're not going to be favorites, and they beat them in the regular season. So even if they beat them this year in the regular season, I don't care. I have to see the playoffs. First the grade, sure you can I give them an A, because but I'm saying in big picture, a Super Bowl favorite, no. I I want to see them against the Eagles this year. I want to see how that game plays out. But looking at the teams separately, I'm still not sure because the Bills feel like they could kind of get pushed around. They're not the biggest team. They become a more finesse team. They're fun to watch. Josh Allen is playing probably the best ball in the NFL maybe, but I got them third. And also, I like teams to have to sharpen their teeth a little bit. The Bills' schedule is so soft. It's the easiest schedule the rest of the NFL. Outside of the Ravens game, which on paper is now not a great win. It's only a 1-3 team.
And he only
They
beat them
play
by
nobody.
one.
Like,
Yeah. Jets, Dolphins,
they play
Saints.
nobody.
Nobody.
And look at their upcoming schedule. Like, where's the games that we're going to get to see? Let's look at this. They got the Patriots. That's not
Patriots,
bad, but not
Falcons,
like a
Panthers
difficult
next.
game.
Then
I
the
mean,
Chiefs.
they they got the
That's the
Chiefs
one. Yeah.
and
But they're
Tampa, and then they
hosting.
got Philly at the end. So, you know, yeah, at least 3 more weeks or 2 more. Yeah, 3 more weeks of I'm not going to be impressed because if they go 3-0 entering the Chiefs game. Well, first they just should. They should go 3-0. So I'm not going to be like, oh my God, I'm scared. I have to see that. And they beat the Chiefs in the regular season, but still lost them in the playoffs in previous years, I believe last year. So I'm looking at the regular season. Then they get another stretch. It's a Dolphins, Tampa, I think could be tough. The Texans, I don't believe in. The Steelers, we don't believe in. The Bengals, Patriots again, Browns, all the way until like second last game of the game. You see the Eagles. And imagine this scenario. What if the Eagles are comfortably in and they bench their starters? So the Bills go into the playoffs and never have to play really a tough team, except for
Yeah.
the Chiefs, probably.
like you
It's I
mentioned though,
so yeah.
even going into the season, they only played four of the top 10 teams. The Ravens, the
Yeah.
Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Eagles, all of them at home in Buffalo. Super, super
Easiest schedule
big
in the NFL.
advantage there. So, yeah, and here's a team like Josh Allen can ball out in the playoffs. I don't think their playoff losses are on him, but their defense does not
But
perform
the
in the
defense,
playoffs.
ooh,
Yeah. So we got to see what's happening there. But, the Dolphins are one of my disappointing teams of the league. I wasn't really too like excited about them coming into this year. Tyreek Hill may be gone for the rest of his life. He may not
I
even
think
play
so.
again. The Jets are 0-4, minus 30-point differential. Not really much to talk about there. I guess their offense is looking better than expected, but they're not fun. Those are two
Hmm.
teams I have no interest in watching. The Patriots, I wasn't really sure what to think about this year.
Hmm.
They're 2-2, plus 21-point differential. Trevion Henderson was probably the biggest fantasy guy people are looking at in terms of like, he's a rookie, blew out in the preseason. He hasn't tremendously performed. Here's a guy I don't even feel comfortable starting yet. I haven't put him in my lineup yet, but I was really excited about picking him. And they played the Raiders, Dolphins, Steelers, Panthers. So those are teams, even if they were 4-0, I wouldn't be super impressed. They got Bills, Saints, Titans, Browns after that. At Buffalo, probably a big blowout. I don't know, not much to say with this team.
Okay. I actually, if I'm
Drake
looking at it from a
May?
fan perspective. For me, a fan perspective, if I'm a Patriots
Yeah.
as a fan, my
Yeah,
grade is an A plus. A plus because Drake May looks legit like a franchise
he
quarterback.
does.
And as
But
a
he
Giants
also
guy,
looks
to feel
terrible
sorry for a franchise
sometimes.
quarterback.
Yeah. He's like
Yeah, but
50-50,
I don't know. I mean, it's almost
60-40.
his quarterback rating this year is 109 through 4 games. Seven
Okay.
touchdowns, 2 picks, 74% completion. And he's throwing the
Ooh,
ball a lot too. This is not thinking dunk. He is chucking this thing.
he
And
is.
keep in mind, they don't have good weapons. You mentioned Trey Anderson. Their receiving core is what, maybe 30th if you were to rank them as a receiving core? Like it's way down. They don't have good weapons, and he's putting up good quarterback numbers. So as a fan, I am loving it. Like I mentioned, I was happy as a Giants, Jackson Dart. I'm loving that. Overall, I give them a B minus. I mean, they were still not a great. They were a bad team last year. They had like 4 wins, and they already got they're 2-2 right now. And I do think they're going to sneak into playoffs. If they make the playoffs, which I think they will, to me that's an A season. You go from last year being around 4 wins, I don't remember off the top of my head, to playoffs, that would be an A. So I'm happy as a Patriots because again, what if they get weapons? What if they get T Higgins from the Bengals on a trade? What if they pick up a weapon for somebody? Then I think they could be a really good team.
They
So
do,
I like what I
they
see
do
there.
need somebody. Yeah. And you were talking about Josh
And
Allen. Actually, Drake May's stats are pretty much the same. They both have seven passing
so I'm saying,
touchdowns. Josh Allen has three compared to Drake May's two rushing touchdowns. Drake May's been sacked six more times, but they're both in the high 900 passing yards. They're both 70% completion percentage. Actually, Drake May's got 4% higher. They're both attempting literally the same, completing the same. They're chucking it. Eight yards per attempt.
so
By the way, the leaders with that for guys
honestly,
that actually pass the ball, we got Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, Jordan Love, Matt Stafford. So those are good quarterbacks.
I'm liking Drake May a lot. I think to me, he's looking good, like really good. But he's one of my,
Yeah.
by the way, my favorite bets. If you bet him at 200 yards, he gets it basically every game. It doesn't pay, but you can match it with like one other parlay because it pays enough. You combine it one thing, it's always a good piece to me, is because they're also always kind of either down or in the game. He's throwing the ball a lot. His attempts are through the roof. The Jets will go through really quick. Might be the worst team in the NFL. Aaron Glenn, everybody loved as a hire. And I'm not saying I didn't like it as a hire, but you start to wonder, is he one of those guys, that great coordinator that's not a good coach? We've seen it with a lot of people. Look at Robert Saleh. He goes back to the Niners. He's a great coordinator, but maybe he's not a coach. Like some people are just great coordinators. Maybe Mike McDaniel. We're going to talk about him probably being fired, but like so the Jets, they looks like they don't have their coach necessarily. They definitely don't have their quarterback of the future. They have a running back that can't throw. Probably the worst team in the NFL. I can make a strong argument for. And the Dolphins. I'm going to give you my shock of this entire day right now. I'm giving the Dolphins season an A minus. And I'm going to tell you why it's so high.
Why? Please.
I'll tell you why it's so high. Because, Lord willing, I pray for everybody. I pray for Tyreek Hill recovery, particularly at life. Like this, like they were saying that this is an injury that like hurts your legs, like just to walk is just such a bad injury. But I think the Tyreek Hill injury is actually a gift for the Dolphins because I think it might be the thing that could allow them to tear it down and rebuild. They were playing a fool's game of pretending they were a good team. They're not a good team. They were a bad team into the season with overpaid players. And now they could say, okay, we're not good. It's like that cracked glass moment in the mirror when you hear the sound of a sitcom. It's like ching. You look in the mirror and say, okay, we're not good and we need to rebuild. And I think if he didn't get injured, they might try to keep like let's bring it back.
Let's try to
Let's
go
run it back, so to
500.
say.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
try 500, run it back. This is like you're playing the street ball I mentioned, and you're like, oh, I only lost by 2 points. Let's run it back. No, but you got super lucky. The other team was way better than you. You get blown out. You say, okay, I can't even play with these guys. So maybe this could be a chance for the Dolphins to rebuild. So I think this actually could be a gift for them to say,
blessing in
because without Tyreek,
disguise.
what if they win 4 games and get a top 3 pick? And they say, okay, maybe we can rebuild this. I know they can't get out of Tua's contract yet, which they should try to, but you can say, okay, we know what we need. We need to rebuild from scratch. So I think this is actually a blessing for them. This gives them the chance to win 4 games, and they should try to win as little games as possible. They should be competing with the Jets and be like, we want to lose.
All right. Hopefully they get a good pick and can make it happen. Look, we haven't seen a good Dolphins team in forever, you know. But all right, Nerdy Sports audience, one little nugget to leave off on. I just picked them up myself. The New England Patriots are one of the defenses to pick up. Right after this Bills matchup, they got the Saints, the Titans, the Browns, and the Falcons, as I mentioned. This is a team you want to pick up in fantasy, guys. All right. So, anything else before we end the quarterly report, Scotty?
Sure, you know what? I will share my bets for tonight because I have several.
Let's
So
do
if
it.
people are interested, let's share. Devontae Adams, 1-to-1 payback, him over his longest reception of 20.5 yards. He's done it in all 4 games this year so far.
Woo.
So that one looks very good for me. I believe his worst game, he had a 27-yard catch. So over 21 is the number.
Adams
Sorry,
20
20. If
plus.
he hits 21,
Let's go.
I like that one. I have 3 other parlays here. They're a little lengthy. I'll try to read them, but people can always rewind. Mac Jones over 150 yards. Rams money line. Christian McCaffrey 40 yards. That also pays back 1-to-1. Third bet is going to be Kyron Williams over 40 yards. The Niners to score at least 7 points, and the Rams plus 3.5. So there's a big wiggle room there. McCaffrey again, 40 rushing yards. That's a 4-piece. That pays back 1-to-line. And the last one is another 4-piece. Kyron Williams, 1 reception. He has one in every game this year and every game last year. Adams, 25 yards receiving. That's a joke. Kyron Williams, 40 yards rushing. Again, he's done that every game. And his backup, 15 yards. He's actually had over 25 yards in every game. They've been getting a lot of. Must have been more as a split backfield. Those are my 4 bets for tonight.
I love it. Let's keep it rolling every week, baby. All right. Well, thank you, Nerdy Sports audience, for joining us again. We will be back next week to talk more sports. We got the MLB playoffs today. We got 3
Here we go.
sudden death
Let's go Yankees.
matchups. Let's go Yankees, baby. And as always, Scotty.
Keep it nerdy.